Hello and welcome to Analog Insights. In today's episode I review the 7Artisans 35mm f2.8 lens, which was only released in April and immediately caught my attention. And that is because it was not only released for the Leica M mount, but also for the Leica Thread Mount, so an LTM lens, which is unusual, and it is also a very compact rangefinder lens that combines modern manufacturing with a vintage double gauss design. And of course I was quite intrigued and yet a little bit skeptical given the low price point of only $428. So I reached out to 7Artisans and kindly asked them whether it would be possible to review it for this channel, and they were kind enough to send me two versions, so both a Leica M and a Leica Thread Mount version. And as always, I'm not being paid for these reviews, I'm just taking the lenses through its paces and then share my honest impressions. In my perception, 7Artisans is definitely hitting a niche here. They are trying to compete with Voigtländer, who are producing similar rangefinder lenses with similar focal lengths here, and also not aiming for a particularly wide open aperture. So it's not about having an f1.4, f2 lens here, but instead something that caters to the needs of typical street photographers who know that they usually wouldn't need an f2 or something like that, but typically work in a f5.6 or f8 range. And what I also found interesting about this lens is, of course, the compact form factor, but also that it is considered quite sharp and well corrected, which is ideal for film photographers who don't want to spend time afterwards with digital profiles and in Lightroom and so on, correcting the weaknesses of a lens. But this one here is constructed in a way that it works out of the box apparently, and that also intrigued me, and I wanted to take a closer look. The Leica M version arrived in time for my trip to Japan that I recently did, and where I could take some images with this lens in Tokyo, Kyoto and Osaka. And then the LTM version arrived here at home in Munich, and I took it out here and also in Berlin. As always, I shot it with different roads of film, so some Ilford FP4, some Fuji Acros 100 in Japan, and also some Fuji Color 100. And as always, these films were developed and scanned by my trusted on-film lab in Frankfurt. Let's dive in there. The lens comes in a classic ultra-compact pancake design with only 20mm thickness, and that makes it one of the smallest rangefinder coupled lenses available. It weighs only 88 grams, and that adds hardly any heft to your camera, and of course then you typically get a very nice everyday carry, street shot or travel companion with such a small lens. The lens has a surprisingly durable and also high quality feel to it. The all metal barrel construction with paint-filled engraved markings feels high value for the money, but a little bit more on that and the build quality later. Optically, the lens features a traditional double gauss design with 7 elements in 5 groups, but it comes with 4 high refraction index elements to maximize resolution, which is particularly interesting if you're shooting high resolution digital cameras, but also for high resolution films like Fuji Acros 100, it is very interesting. The lens has 7 aperture blades that close down from f2.8 to f22. The filter thread is 34mm, and 7Artisans is providing a fitting UV filter, which I used here for all my test images. And part of the package is also a small protective bumper hood, a larger cylindrical metal hood, and the dedicated lens caps designed to fit the various configurations that it's coming with. And I found that quite interesting, to be honest, especially at a time where many manufacturers ask you to purchase an additional lens hood or something. Here you have a $400 price point, and you have the various accessories coming with the lens. Depending on your preference for a configuration, you can just use it. What I also found interesting is that the LTM version of the lens comes with an M adapter versus the M version comes as a standalone. So they have the same price point, and in my opinion the LTM version is quite interesting and attractive here because you can basically use it on both systems here, depending on whether you want to shoot it on a Canon rangefinder or Voigtländer L or R. So this is quite interesting and makes this particular version of the lens very versatile. Optically, the lens is remarkable and its performance actually surprised me. To be honest, I didn't expect much from a $400 US 7Artisans lens. I was like, okay, let's see, it's very compact, it's nice, but not so sure about it optically. And yet, when I got the results, I was surprised to see an impressive contrast, really nice sharpness. Even at f2.8, you have a beautiful sharpness in the center. Of course, corner resolution and sharpness lag behind, but once you stop down to f4 and especially f5.6, you get really nice sharpness and high resolution across the entire frame. And you can see that here with the Fuji A-Cross 100 films. It's really, really nice and offering a lot of detail. Barrel distortion is kept to a minimum, and according to 7Artisans, it's strictly under 1%. Again, this is beautiful for us film shooters because we cannot simply go into Lightroom afterwards and apply a profile, a lens profile, and then get it all corrected, all the distortions. So in my case, as a film shooter, I really appreciate it, and you can see that here in my images. I hardly encountered any distortions. There was some little bit visible here, but overall I was really happy with the results. The lens doesn't suffer from any focus shift when stopping down, so that ensures a predictable accuracy across the entire range of aperture, which I like as well, and especially as a film shooter where you cannot really correct it. And often in these cases you first focus and then maybe adapt the aperture to get correct exposure. This doesn't matter and won't cause any problems. The only thing is, due to the physics of such an ultra slim barrel design, the lens shows some visible fall off when shot wide open, so in the corners. And by f4, this already improved significantly, which I found interesting because this is a very common problem with these kinds of very compact lenses. And in the case of the very expensive Leica Summaron 28mm f5.6, which you can purchase new as kind of a vintage classic line Leica design, you have the same problem. And here it's kind of cherished and promoted as something special, drawing you into the frame and so on. And I've probably said that before as well here on the channel. So personally, I don't mind it, but you should be aware of that. This is a common problem and kind of a trade-off that comes with a compact form factor. And while the lens comes with a modern anti-reflective coating, or multiple coatings actually, shooting against strong sources of light might create some flares and a noticeable loss of contrast, of course. And here I forced this a little bit, even when shooting it with a hood or without, it doesn't really matter. When really shooting against the light, I noticed that, and to my eyes it also created some beautiful effects that I appreciated, especially these reflections here on buildings and so on in the early morning sun. I personally like that and the effect that was created. But again, this is a matter of taste. Color reproduction was very good and very nice here with the Fuji Color 100 in Japan, but I noticed quite a difference whether you have enough light available with that particular film or whether it's more of an overcast day. I think the colors and the lens really start to shine if you have enough light available. So here the shots in the sunlight look significantly better, at least to my eyes. So overall, a very nice performance that I didn't expect, to be honest. So what about the handling and my personal impressions? First and foremost, I cherish and appreciate every manufacturer producing LTM lenses today, because I really love shooting LTM cameras like the Canon rangefinders, the Voigtländer Bessa L and R models, or also the classic Oscar Barnack screw mount cameras. And yet sometimes it can be a nuisance to be dependent on vintage glass that, of course, when you have to source it, can come with all sorts of problems like balsam separation, haze and fungi and so on. And being able to just take the camera that you appreciate using and combine it with a modern lens that was newly produced and comes with all sorts of corrections and optimizations and coatings is quite nice and convenient. And personally, I like that kind of combination and having the ability to tap into these kinds of lenses. So this, I think, is great. The only thing that is worth mentioning is, of course, that the Leica M version naturally close focuses down to 0.7 meters, as always on a Leica M. And with the LTM version, you might have that limitation that you can only close focus to 1 meter, which is common. In comparison to the similarly beautiful Voigtländer 35mm f3.5 lens here, this lens, and this in my opinion is the only competition on the market, this lens here is 11 grams lighter, is half as expensive and offers a stop more, and I found that quite remarkable. And yet, of course, the 7Artisans does not have the same build quality as a Voigtländer lens, so there is a difference, a noticeable difference. In my case, for instance, the focusing ring had some slight resistance and even made a quiet noise when moving it, which is an indication that it's not either perfectly fitted or lubricated or that there's something going on. It was not really disturbing me, but it kind of fit my expectations that the build quality would not be as great as a Voigtländer Thypog or other lens. And yet I feel like optically the lens outshines its build quality. So I was, as I've mentioned before, surprised by the optical quality, and then kind of the mechanical quality fit my expectations. And yet it was a joy using this lens. So don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed the focusing tab. I enjoyed the infinity lock and operating it. Again, this is a matter of taste, but I always appreciate having these kinds of infinity locks, especially on lenses that are vintage inspired. And of course, this lens is so small that you don't have any kind of viewfinder blockage. Even with the larger cylindrical lens hood attached, there's no problem at all. Personally, in practice, I ended up using this lens most of the time with only the UV filter attached, so no lens hood, even of course if you should be using it with the lens hood. I felt like it's kind of defeating the purpose of having such a small compact lens and then kind of adding this comparatively large lens hood on it. So my take would be to just take it out with the UV filter. And I think this is a great 35mm lens. There are certainly much better 35mm lenses out there, but there are few as inexpensive as this one. And this for me is the main argument. You get quite some optical quality for the money here. It's not perfect from a mechanical standpoint, but it is a solid lens. The typical competitors, as mentioned, would be maybe Voigtländer lenses, or if you go vintage, then it typically becomes equally expensive or significantly more expensive, but you also get more character and more flair to it. So if you just want a modern manufactured lens, newly manufactured lens that doesn't give you any headaches, this is a really interesting option in my opinion. Personally, I'm not quite sure whether I would purchase the Leica M version of this lens. I'm more drawn to the LTM version, and part of the reason is that I felt like this lens is so small on my Leica M that the M camera is kind of overshadowing the lens, kind of too heavy and big in comparison. And the LTM cameras, the typical Canon rangefinders and also Oscar Barnack cameras, of course, tend to be a bit more compact and smaller, and to my eyes at least, they better fit this particular lens. The only problem is that with the Oscar Barnack Leicas, you would typically need a dedicated viewfinder for them. And what I found a bit unfortunate is that this lens is only available in black, so there is no silver version. I understand that 7Artisans is probably aiming to keep production costs at bay here and only offer it because of that in a black version, and yet a silver version would be really nice to perfectly match it to the Canon L2 that I have here or to an Oscar Barnack with an added viewfinder. But other than that, a really, really nice offering here. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Analog Insights and my review of the 7Artisans 35mm f2.8 lens, which is a very nice blend of a modern manufactured lens with a vintage double gauss design and a certain flair to it. And most importantly, it comes at a quite inexpensive price point that should put Voigtländer and others on their toes, because this is a very nice balance of a good optical performance and quality, and I would say solid mechanical performance, and a very good price tag, or low price tag even. Personally, I particularly like that it comes not only as a Leica M version, which can be easily sold, but also offering and catering to the needs of a niche client that would be interested in the LTM version. I like that, and I think that's worth supporting. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Analog Insights and my review. If you did, please remember to like it and maybe even share it with your friends. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel. Jules, Greg, and I really appreciate each and every subscriber coming our way. So thanks for watching. I hope to see you soon. Bye.